Malcolm X was 4 years old when a violent extremist hate group targeted his family in Lansing, Michigan. One night in 1929, the little home went up in flames, with the family inside. That night did not just burn wood and brick. It burned the last piece of innocence a black child in a racially divided America was allowed to have. Most people know Malcolm X, the symbol. The glasses, the speeches, the words that made power structures uncomfortable and black America stand taller. But nobody asks the harder question. What happened to the boy before he became the weapon? Because Malcolm X was not born angry. He was made. And this is how. Malcolm Little was born into a war zone, not a battlefield overseas, right here in America. His father, Earl Little, preached black self-reliance and black dignity. He spoke the kind of truth that makes the powerful panic. And when you threaten a system built on fear, that system does not debate you. It targets you. In Lansing, groups tied to racial terror did not just disagree. They warned you at your doorstep. And when the warnings did not work, they escalated. Then came the fire. Imagine being 4 years old, waking up to heat and smoke, to shouting, to your parents yanking you and your siblings into the cold while your home turns to ash behind you. And afterward, no one was held accountable. No one paid. The world moved on like it was normal. That silence taught Malcolm something no classroom ever could. Justice is not blind. It is selective. When your house burns and the authorities shrug, you learn the rules early. Safety is conditional. Protection is negotiable. And telling the truth can make you a target. Remember that, because every word Malcolm ever spoke later starts here. And the turning point does not come until years later, behind bars, when he discovers the one weapon no one can take. 2 years later, Earl Little was dead. The official story was an accident. Clean, convenient, case closed. But Malcolm's family never believed it. And that is another lesson a child should not have to learn. Sometimes the truth is not what happened. Sometimes the truth is what the paperwork says happened. Louise Little was left with 8 children and no real protection. Poverty hit fast. Not a slow decline, a collapse. Welfare workers entered their lives like judges, not helpers. They inspected, they questioned, they documented. Not to support a grieving widow, but to build a case. Louise fought anyway, for years, holding a shattered life together with pure will. But the machine is patient. It pressures, squeezes, waits. And eventually it breaks people, then calls the breaking proof. By 1939, Louise was institutionalized, declared unfit, locked away. The state called it protection. To Malcolm, it was theft. Because after they took his mother, they scattered the children and erased the family. Quietly, bureaucratically, permanently. No dramatic courtroom scene, just a stamped form and a childhood gone. Malcolm bounced between white foster homes. Tolerated, not loved. Fed, not nurtured. He learned fast. Survival meant shrinking himself. Talking right. Smiling at jokes that were not funny. Accepting praise that was not praise, like being called articulate, as if intelligence in a black child was a surprise. At school, Malcolm excelled. Sharp, focused, top of his class. Then one day his teacher asked what he wanted to be. Malcolm answered honestly, a lawyer. And the teacher, without raising his voice, without shouting, shut the dream down in one sentence. He told Malcolm it was not realistic for someone like you. He used language meant to put a child in his place. Then he offered a practical future. Work with your hands. That moment was not about grades. It was not about talent. It was about permission. The ceiling was not made of failure. It was made of expectation. No matter how smart Malcolm was, the world around him had already decided who he was allowed to become. And black lawyer was not on the list. And when a child learns the front door is locked, he stops knocking. Not because he is weak, because he is awake. Under pressure, lives can be cornered and still be forged. Not to excuse what happened, but to explain how fire can turn a boy into a force. Malcolm left school, not because he was stupid, because he was smart enough to see the game. Why study for a future you are not allowed to have? Why climb a ladder someone keeps moving higher? The streets, at least, were honest. They did not pretend the world was fair while rigging the deck. They told you the rules up front. Survive or do not. Crime did not enter Malcolm's life as rebellion. It entered as structure, as identity, as the only place where intelligence and ambition did not require permission. People love asking how someone as brilliant as Malcolm ended up in prison. Better question. How could someone with his childhood end up anywhere else? When your house burns and nobody pays, when your father dies and the story gets handled, when your mother breaks and the system calls it care, when your dream gets crushed in a classroom and labeled realism, when every legitimate door closes before you even touch the handle. What exactly is left? The streets did not create Malcolm's rage. They inherited it. Prison did not destroy Malcolm Little. It clarified him. But before he became Malcolm X, the revolutionary, before books, self-education, the Nation of Islam, before the speeches that shook a nation, there was a boy whose childhood was stolen, piece by piece, by a country that needed him small. Every speech Malcolm gave carried the weight of that boy. The one who learned justice is selective. Protection is conditional. And dreams require permission from people who do not plan to grant it. He did not believe in polite conversations about progress because politeness never protected his family. And listen carefully. The fire that made Malcolm X did not start in prison. It started in Lansing, Michigan, when a 4-year-old boy learned the world does not protect all children equally. And in prison, he finds the one weapon they cannot confiscate. Malcolm X was not born angry. He was shaped by forces that wanted him silent, compliant, or gone. But instead of breaking, he became a mirror. He reflected America's ugliness back at itself so clearly the country could not look away. You think you know Malcolm X? Not yet. This was only the beginning, because the boy who lost everything would walk into prison a criminal and walk out transformed. How that happens. How a man rebuilds himself from nothing inside a cell. That is, part 2. Comment next if you want the prison chapter. And if you are here for the full story, subscribe because we are going all the way. Drop next below. Let's finish what we started.